Ever since the birth of video games like Pong, text-adventure games like Zork in the 1970s, people have begun living with video games. People simply seem to like having an interactive experience in their entertainment. In a presentation made by Jane McGonigal from TED Talk, she found that the average person plays 10,000 hours of video games by the time they turn 21. People think that games are just a waste of time or rot the mind. But those are just stereotypes given to all gamers and people who play games and create them for a living. Jane also remarks that more than 5 million people spend more than 40 hours a week playing video games, as much as a full-time job, so there are definitely people in the world who take video games seriously. Video games not only entertain billions of people a day, but also provide many stimulants to the mind and emotions of a person. People who don't play video games on a regular basis may decide that video games are a violent waste of time. It is a true fact that games have grown in violence with the growing of graphics, but these are only rarely worse than what is in movies and on TV now anyway. Teenagers tend to go right for the flashiest and gory games like Call of Duty and Battlefield, but even in these cases, games help with concentration, teamwork, and communication skills. However, these few advantages aren't enough to most parents to allow their children to play these sort of games. Jonathan Blow is with the parents and agrees that games are generally doing more harm than good. And yet, Jonathan is a game designer who has made millions from his latest work. Jonathan Blow created the hit strategy game Braid, a time-manipulating strategy game. Jonathan believes that the art of interactive entertainment is being destroyed by the demand for bigger explosions and more killing. He thinks that a game needs to make a player relax instead of becoming more tense and use the brain to think instead of doing repetitive things like pushing a button to pull a trigger. There are many game genres that stray away from the stereotypical games that people associate with wasting time. A personal favorite genre of mine is the sandbox game type in which a player can do almost everything he or she wants. Yes, this does mean that the player can just choose to kill everyone in the game, but this is not the point. These games have many dynamic choices and what the player does that alters the game from then on with one main goal and many side goals. Games like Fallout or Skyrim are sandbox games that are widely renowned. Also, there are games that help even more with teamwork and help the mind think. A real-time strategy game, or an RTS, is a game where there is a team versus a team and there's one main goal. In games like StarCraft or League of Legends, two of the most played RTSs, teams must communicate very strategically for a greater goal, and these games tend to have only minor amounts of violence. There are many genres that stray away from violence completely or have only small amounts. Minecraft, a game which has sold millions of copies, is simply a game in which the player builds with different materials. There is only small amounts of fighting, but the main purpose is to create amazing landscapes and designs and let players' minds run free. Many games are made to create many amazing things and then share them with the world and other gamers. It is always great fun to create something and express oneself with the help of other friends. What people think is a waste is actually one of the biggest industries of all time. Video games are adored by billions of people in the world. All of the games that I have in this video have sold millions of copies, and the more modern games have thousands of people playing them right now. The Smithsonian Museum had thousands of people vote on what to include in an exhibit for games, and it was quite obvious that this type of exhibit was in demand. What most people don't understand is that watching television and playing video games is practically the same thing. The only difference is that watching television is not as interactive as playing a video game. As you can see, video games are more than just games. They put the player in the perspective of who they are taking over to do things that they never would be able to do. Games are becoming more involved and helpful to keep the mind active. Every person wants to be something they aren't or want to improve in some way, and video games can help accomplish those dreams.